This video is a contribution to the Red Ribbon Reviewers, which helps spread awareness of HIV and AIDS while making content for those who are having a hard time during the holiday season. Over the years, we spotlighted charities like Gaia, the Global AIDS Interfaith Alliance, but given, well, recent events, queer communities in America are going to be targeted, which is why this year we are promoting the Trevor Project, a non-profit suicide and crisis prevention organization for young LGBTQ people 24/7 all year round. They also work with lawmakers, educators, and allies in public sector to understand and support queer youth or being brought up in a climate that might be harmful. You are loved, you are seen, and to hell to all those people that don't. If you want to learn more about Red Ribbon Reviewers and the Trevor Project, the links will be in the description. Happy holidays and enjoy the show. Hello, I'm NC, Nostalgia Christ, and I have returned after leaving y'all for a few days. So, what's been going on ever since I've been away? Okay, never mind, I'm going back up. Bye everyone! Okay, fine. I guess I'll stay down here for a bit. I don't have a good enough transition. Do you know what a good old pastime for me was around this time of year? Watching some holiday specials, whether it was on the TV or digging through some VHS tapes to pop in and watch. Now I know I'm not that dumb. I do know that holiday specials have existed even before my parents were a concept to their parents, but if I covered every single special ever made, we'd be here all day. And let's face it, we've all been children, and we all have our own different ways on how we grew up. Like those who grew up with classic Cartoon Network are still looked at proudly, and those who grew up watching Nickelodeon are in therapy. And there's no better way to look back at my childhood than with the holiday specials I grew up watching and see how I ended up here. That would be helpful. Let's start off with two of the earliest ones I remember seeing: Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer and Frosty the Snowman. Now you may be saying, Gus, you're in your mid-20s, how do you remember seeing these? It was this or remembering the Great Depression. These were made by Rankin Bass Entertainment, which practically made a monopoly on specials, whether it was 2D animation or their classic stop motion. They also made The King and I. These were based on the songs of the same name, and they still played them on TV nearly 60 years later. Of course, nowadays people would go, this looks like shit, or why would I bother watching this when there are better options? Yeah, this sucks, I should get my kid a Cybertruck. And this. Okay, to be fair, yeah, I see why this could be dated presentation-wise, but still, there's a charm looking back at these and remembering a certain childlike wonder before remembering the harsh reality that is the real world. A Charlie Brown Christmas is one of many specials based off the classic Peanuts comic strips, with only a handful of them I do actually remember watching over the years. But man, I do remember seeing the others via the Peanuts home video promos on various Nickelodeon home video releases.
You want to talk about Peanuts videos? Talk about Peanuts videos? Peanuts videos? Peanuts videos?
Yes. Saying this, of course, is one of the most beloved Christmas specials would be the understatement of the century, but goddamn, it is well worthy of that title. The premise being that Charlie Brown is still depressed despite loving everything about Christmas, but is more peeved about everyone being obsessed with the commercialism wrapped around it. It's still a cute little special that is loved by many to this day, so much so that it was broadcasted over the years on CBS, ABC, Who Gives a Shit, and We Tried, over the course of 57 years.
Of all the Charlie Browns in the world, you're the Charlie Browniest.
Now for a lot of these, as I'm on the same boat as y'all on seeing these specials, was either on VHS tapes like I said, or when they were shown on TV like ABC or ABC Family during their 25 Days of Christmas marathon. Now the next one I don't remember seeing either on tape or on TV first, I'm not really sure, was A Christmas Story. Wow Gus, that's great! Next tell us what sound the cow makes! This ended up being one of my all-time favorites to watch around the holidays. Much like Charlie Brown, I don't think I need to say much because I believe everyone knows about it. Because TBS will constantly remind you about it every year.
You're watching 24 Hours of a Christmas Story on TBS.
It looks like a pink nightmare.
24 Hours of a Christmas Story continues next on TBS.
24 Hours of a Christmas Story.
Now watching 24 Hours of a Christmas Story.
Yeah, so nowadays, Christmas Story is a bit of a double-edged sword. It's still good, but why is there so much merchandise for it? Sure, I'm fine with them playing it 24 hours on Christmas Eve, but that's because I usually leave it on in the background when I'm trying to fall asleep. The merchandise, on the other hand...
It's like people only do things because they get paid. And that's just really sad.
Now, I won't go and say that the marketing enterprise on this is horrendously bad. I would just say it's bad. Want more proof of that? Well, look no further than A Christmas Story 2 from 2012, whose trailer is notorious for having at least 20,000 dislikes on YouTube. Or you could sit through the 2-hour-long special A Christmas Story Live from 2017. But why would you do that? And finally, when there was one more sequel in 2022 for streaming services, a whole lot of people went, yeah, that was pretty good. I gotta say, the first Christmas Story is still something you can always go back to, because it's from the memories of the kid now as an adult being told to you. And despite being set in the 50s, it pretty much has nearly everything we did as kids. The excitement for Christmas, daydreaming, and the emotions we all went through. Even though it's overplayed and commercialized, I still love this movie. There was also My Summer Story. The next one is a bit of an oddity, The Little Match Girl. Now you may be thinking, oh, the one included on the Little Mermaid DVD? No, this one I've had since the 2000s is an adaptation of the Hans Christian Andersen story from 1999 by Vivitoon. Looking back at this, yeah, the animation is, what's the word for it? Not good. But I'm bringing this up for one reason. It was the first time that any piece of media has ever made me cry, and my sister always teased me about it. Well, joke's on you, I still live at home with mom and dad. But aside from that, I don't remember much from this one. This is just one of those you remember seeing as a kid, and it hits you like a truck to say the key words, remember, that, and I. I wish I could spew more genuine thoughts about this, but all I remember was watching it, crying, and that's it. One day when going through my family's VHS tapes, I stumbled upon this next one. Dr. Seuss's How the Grinch Stole Christmas. Another one I own, and based off one of the most famous children's books by the Seuss man himself. Okay, close second. Over the years, it was broadcasted on many channels, but the one I have the most distinct memory of was its airing on TBS. It's remembered fondly by everyone for its simplicity. The lovely Chuck Jones animation, the title character himself voiced by Boris Karloff, the classic songs like Welcome Christmas and You're a Mean One, Mr. Grinch, the latter of which is sung by none other than Tony the Tiger himself. But of course, more people are fond of the Ron Howard adaptation with Jim Carrey playing the title character, which, I'll admit, I don't have many memories of. So let's go and revisit it to see what I think. Oh, okay. To be fair, I won't go out of my way to say it's as bad as, say, The Cat in the Hat with Mike Myers. More or less, kind of underwhelming and somewhat boring. And I get it, because the original story was 64 pages, and the only adaptation before this was 25 minutes, and there's so much you can be faithful towards when you're practically stretching a story out to feature length. And then they made a third one in 2018. Mickey's Once Upon a Christmas was another one I found going through my family's tapes, but also from what I remember, I never really was that big of a Disney kid. Sure, I did see some classics growing up like Toy Story, Bug's Life, The Incredibles, but during that course, I never saw any of the all-time classics like Aladdin, Beauty and the Beast, or Lion King. Yes, I like to make my reservation for hell early, thank you. I wasn't completely blind to Disney. I knew who Mickey, Minnie, Donald, Goofy, and Pluto were, but that's mostly due to being the youngest and absorbing a lot of this thanks to my older siblings. The structure of Once Upon a Christmas is an anthology with 3 different stories. One following Huey, Dewey, and Louie wishing it was Christmas every day, but eventually learns the true meaning of the holiday, celebrating it with their Uncle Donald, Daisy, Aunt, and their great Uncle Scrooge. The second story is about Goofy and Max as he tries to prove to his son that Santa Claus is real due to Pete telling him that he's not real because Pete's a dick. Even the truth gets to Goofy, and he gives up hope to make his son believe it, but he is. And Pete gets his comeuppance because all my homies hate Pete.
He's an asshole.
The final story is based on The Gift and the Magi, where Mickey and Minnie try really hard to get each other something for Christmas. Mickey wants to get her this gold chain for her watch, and Minnie wants to get something special for him, that being a case for his harmonica. But if you know the original story, then you know how this goes. They sold and traded what means the most to them for the gifts for their loved ones. But it's not the expensive gifts that'll make someone happy. It's knowing the lengths you'll go to for that person. Sure, when I was a kid, I was mostly like, ooh, pretty shapes and colors. But I think now as an adult, I can appreciate it and what they were trying to do with each story. Knowing that the holiday isn't just about the gifts or the huge display you have to set. It's about either making sure you surround yourself with the people you care about, or making sure you keep the magic of the season alive. They also made a follow-up to this one called Mickey's Twice Upon a Christmas. What do I think of that one? I own it. Yeah, I don't recall liking or hating this one. I just remembered that it was there. Hell, I remember more about Mickey's Magical Christmas, snowed in at the House of Mouse, another one I owned. This was pretty much a feature-length episode of the show House of Mouse, where Mickey and friends own a dinner theater where characters from other Disney properties go to frequently, while the staff there run into conflicts and issues, while the theater shows classic shorts from the 30s all the way to the 50s. This one is no different. After a show on Christmas Eve, it turns out that the guests can't leave due to being, well, snowed in. So Mickey puts together a free of charge Christmas party until the storm stops. Everyone seems to be happy with this, except for Donald, who isn't in the holly jolly spirit. So of course they show a bunch of Christmas themed shorts to help get him into the spirit. Now to be fair, the only shorts I remember from this one are Pluto's Christmas tree, where Mickey and his good boy Pluto are getting a tree not knowing that said tree is the home of Chip and Dale. The other one was the last one they showed for the special, Mickey's Christmas Carol, with Scrooge McDuck in the role of Ebenezer. Oh man, I thought it was gonna be Uncle Remus. Sure, I may not remember the rest of it as a kid, but that didn't matter. What really matters is what you gotta have seen something as a kid and the impact it left on you. And one of the most simple specials I remember watching a lot was the VHS of Blue's Clues' Blue's Big Holiday. Now, as someone who was the youngest in their family, or for any of y'all who had a younger sibling and there was a TV in the house around the mid-90s or early 2000s, you probably grew up watching a lot of Nick Jr. And whether it was any of these shows, it was at least 90% of the time Blue's Clues, which was absolutely the case with me. This was the show, okay? I loved it as a kid. Whether it was watching it on the TV, but which was always the case, watching it on VHS tapes, Blue's Clues was a remarkable show back then, and still is to this day, helping kids to think, learn, and master important skills in each viewing while still being entertaining at the same time. Even when the show got rebooted in 2019, I decided to check it out and yeah, it's still good. Sure, their first season was pretty much remakes of old ones before doing their own unique ones starting with later seasons, but even when they do updated things like sometimes having emails instead of letters, it's still a new take on a show I grew up with, and I'm happy that a new generation got to see it. Plus, the OG hosts are still part of it, either behind the scenes or making cameos in some episodes.
I never forgot you. Ever. And I'm super glad we're still friends.
I'm not crying, you're crying! But yeah, Blue's Big Holiday. Not really a Christmas special, but still celebrating the holidays in general, while not only learning about Christmas, Hanukkah, and Kwanzaa, but also playing the game the show's named after to find out what Blue wants to add to the memory quilt, which is a holiday tradition they do. This sounds simple, but that's what I like about it. That and seeing the house and the neighborhood dressed in decorations and that winter wonderland. It just feels cozy, like a warm blanket. Such comfort that makes me happy. I also remember watching the other holiday tape from the show, Blue's First Holiday. Now here, the family's holiday season is actually watching home movies, and for the first time ever in the series, no actual game of Blue's Clues is played in this one. Well, kind of. So the videos they watch is seeing everyone when they were little, including a young Steve and how he and Blue first met. The second tape was actually a telling of the first time they played Blue's Clues. A quick one, but still to figure out where the blanket was for Steve's little brother Joe, who would later become the host after Steve left, who I liked equally as Steve, thank you very much. Now, even though this one isn't as traditional as any other episode of the show, it still has a charm of the holidays, being around friends and family, looking back at old home movies, and what better time to look back than the winter holidays. If I had any gripe, it's mostly with the VHS release, because they just added a random episode that really doesn't share the theme of the tape. At least with Big Holiday, that one shares with the theme of winter, but not with this one, just an odd thing I noticed. Listen, it's either a complaint about that, or the fact that this tape came out in September. It's like department stores, their calendars are different than ours. Which is more than I could say about Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer the movie. Look, the only thing I remember about this thing was that it was there. It was in the background. I seriously have no goddamn memory of either liking it or hating it when I was a kid. Same goes for The Legend of Frosty the Snowman. The only thing with this was that it came along with the original Rankin Bass special on DVD. I saw it in 2006. Sure, I think then these were just movies to have on in the background to occupy kids. Just like Vlad the Impaler, they did their job. These next two I remember seeing on both DVD and YouTube from the time frame of 2009 and 2010. And they're both from the same series that, if you know me, won't be a surprise to any of y'all. Okay, another close second. Mystery Science Theater 3000 was, is, and will always be my show, okay? So don't go be making fun of me when your show was f***ing Fanboy and Chum Chum. Sure, I started watching the show in 2008 thanks to the movie, but still, I fell in love with it. So much so that I was able to find my first DVD set, and then I found another, and another, and another, and another. Let's just say I'm never going to be living on my own. This show changed me, man. It's been my biggest inspiration for comedy. It's given me laughs even during the lowest points of my life. Even the revival is good. Sure, it's not the same show, but it can still make me laugh even with the differences. At least I'm not using this as a criticism, which if you do, I know you're someone I don't want to hang out with. Going back to holiday specials, as of right now, there are at least 4 Christmas-themed specials MST3K has done, but back then there were only 2 that I and many have seen and knew about: Santa Claus Conquers the Martians and Santa Claus, both from the Joel and Mike era. The first one has a bunch of spacemen kidnapping 2 kids, and of course Santa Claus, so he doesn't really conquer anything. The title lied to me. But what really helps this episode is the host segments where Joel and the bots do many staples of the holiday, like looking through catalogs, singing Christmas carols, looking at old TV specials, writing Christmas essays, and finally going through their stockings on Christmas Eve. Even their invention exchange with the Mads is Misfit Toys based off the island from Rudolph.
Whoever heard of a Charlie in the box?
Exactly.
The second one has the SOL crew watching a Mexican Christmas movie where Santa prepares to deliver presents on Christmas while the devil tries to stop him. You know, this film is also referred to as Santa Claus vs. the Devil, and all that boils down to is having 3 kids try to sabotage Santa, or just a bunch of Tom and Jerry like slapstick. I'll take it. Listen, it's either that or being terrified by Santa's wind-up reindeer. Much like Santa Claus Conquers the Martians, the host segments really help this episode. Just like there, they sing Christmas carols, or at least try to. They all do a Secret Santa-like gift exchange, even with a sweater GPC gifts to Mike with a very odd name on it.
Look at that, it says, Joikey on it.
Yeah, well, I started knitting it for the other guy a long time ago, and then, well, you know.
And since Mike is trapped in space, the bots do try to get a hold of his family, but that doesn't pay off very well due to the amount of Nelsons on Earth. They eventually sing a new and original Christmas carol, as Mike gets the Christmas blues and misses home. It begins to snow outside, don't question it, shut up, as they get to have a snow day to end off the holiday. Also, Dr. F gives Frank a savings bond which he can use in
2023.
Holy shit, he could have used it last year. And it's for a whopping $25. Well, it's the thought that counts, I guess. These are classic episodes, and in my opinion, classic specials to watch around this time of year. I'd love to talk about these, as well as the other ones in greater detail one day, so I'll stop for the most part. But seeing these when I was getting into the show as a kid, finding new episodes was always a treat thanks to people sharing them on YouTube back then, and because of that, would later pave the road it would lead me on. We all go bankrupt in our own little ways. And that's honestly a good place to end. Now, I can go on and on about some of the random one-off specials I saw, like Pee-wee's Christmas at the Playhouse, some of the Nicktoons ones, Grandma Got Run Over by a Reindeer, the time I thought Christmas with the Cranks was a good movie. However, even though I remember watching them, I can't recall fully loving them or being like, that was okay. But the ones I do remember, they helped form me into who I am today. Even though I forgot some, even if I don't religiously watch them every holiday season. They mean a lot to me. The holidays are a difficult time for everyone. There's no getting around that. Either it's being stressed out on what to do, what to get someone, or a sad time because you have nobody to be around, either because of loss, going no contact, or just being alone. But it's important to try and remember and cherish those simpler moments you had when you were a kid, where everything was magical and had you grinning from ear to ear. But unfortunately, that gets harder to do the more you grow up. Which is why your childhood is important. You can't take that for granted. And while we do have to grow up at some point, and also while the holidays can be a bad time for any of us, given how life is and how the world is changing for the worse with every passing second, it's perfectly okay to look back and reflect on what you liked. What specials did you like to watch? Why did you like it? What is it that made you happy? Because it can honestly help you rediscover that little piece on what made you, you. That's why I'm proud of the specials I watched as a kid. As silly as they were, as basic as they can be, they were mine. And they gave me some of the best Christmas memories I can ask for. Everyone has different experiences on what they grew up watching. Sure, I didn't see It's a Wonderful Life or the 10 millionth adaptation of A Christmas Carol, but if I talk about what you grew up watching, well, that's called plagiarism. Whatever it was that you or I grew up with watching, it still gave us that warm, wonderful, joyful holiday feeling that makes this time of year a little bit easier. Turns out that was an ulcer.
This is the best Christmas ever.
Happy holidays, everyone!